to the 60 Plus podcast.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Joe.
How are you today, Joe?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day here
It
in
is.
our 60 Plus podcast studio.
It's gorgeous.
It really
I'm
is.
looking out the window and I'm seeing gold and red and orange and all the beautiful colors of the fall.
Yes. Yes, it's a beautiful fall week in New England. We've had like 70 plus degrees.
I know. It's been so nice.
I told you I've been riding my bike every day.
Me too.
And
Me
it's
too.
just been, it's not too long before the bike will go away for the winter.
I know. And it's fun because you're out there, you're meeting people, saying hello.
I'm powering through, telling people, get out of my way.
That was supposed to be a segue, by the way.
Oh, I'm not very bright, you know.
Yes, I've just started to realize that.
All right, do it again.
No.
Do it again, Janet.
No. So yeah, you get out on your bike and you get meeting people and it's fun,
So what are we talking about today,
You
Janet?
never know who you're going to meet, Joe.
That's true. You never know.
So yeah, so we're doing a nostalgia episode and we're going to be talking about that very thing. How you used to meet and date way back when
Way back when in the day,
versus now.
you had proposed this topic and said, dating in our teens. And I said, you think I dated in my teens?
And I was like, oh, okay.
I technically did, but it was
All right,
my
it
late
was
teens. My
one
late
person.
teens. My late teens.
It's okay. It all counts.
So this kind of goes to the topic.
Right.
How did I meet the person that I was dating when I was in
Not one person.
I needed a prom date, and I asked my friend, do you know a girl?
Anybody who's desperate enough. No.
Pretty much. That was pretty much it. That was the conversation.
Aw, did you ever see her again?
Yes, actually, we had a junior prom, and
Mhm.
there was one young lady that I took to
You
the
saw
junior
her
prom.
again a year later at the senior prom?
No, we did go out a few times,
Uh-huh.
and then my senior prom date, another friend.
Mhm.
She was a friend of a friend of a friend.
Mhm.
And we dated for like 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That was kind of serious.
it kind of was.
Yeah.
And then it
Okay.
wasn't.
That's kind of how it goes. That hasn't changed.
No, that's pretty much the way it goes. So the way we used to meet people that we dated
Yeah.
has drastically
I
changed.
know, it's crazy. I was looking at a chart. So if you look at like the 70s, 80s, the top way we used to meet the people that we have relationships is through a friend, right?
Hmm.
And then you look at it in the 2010s, and guess what the top bar is now?
The 2010s?
2020s.
Oh, I know what it is. I knew before I even looked at the chart.
Yeah,
It's online dating.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's crazy how it's
Yeah.
taken off.
Yeah, and the second bar back in the 70s, right, was through family. But then in the 80s, it went to coworker.
Now you can't even ask someone that you work with
Yeah,
to go
so
out.
that has dropped way down.
Right.
Way down. And actually, what has risen back up again is bar or restaurant.
Okay,
So
so
it's like online and then, through a friend is still up there. That hasn't really changed too much. I mean, it's reduced, but it was the top bar for a long time through a friend.
when you say bar, you're
80s,
looking at a bar graph.
I'm looking at a bar graph, a
Mhm.
moving bar graph. In the 2000s, it was through a friend, then it was bar or restaurant. And then in the 2010s, it was online through a friend and then a bar or restaurant.
Have you ever met someone in a bar or restaurant that you ended up dating?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to think back now. I got a lot of years to think through.
A lot of water over the dam there, Janet.
Uh, No, I didn't have a lot of my boyfriends in the sense that I wasn't like a serial dater type of thing.
No?
I always was like it was a relationship,
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think back, so I think serious relationships back in the day. Now, when we're talking about teens, that was different, right? So I think I had my very first like official date when I was like in 8th grade.
Do you know what you did?
Yes.
What did you
He
do?
asked me to go study.
On the first date?
Well, that was like what you did, right? You're like, "Can we go steady?" And then like you went on a date, and I think we went to the movies.
Oh, you just made me remember.
Oh,
Actually,
maybe you remembered another date that you had.
my very first date. It was in must have been like sophomore year in high school, and it was a friend of mine's sister, and we went.
Right, because you went to an all boys school.
I did. I
right?
went
So
to an all male school.
yeah, so the first date I went on was with somebody in my class.
Hmm. I think
Right.
that's more normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you go to an all male high school, you don't know very many girls. No,
No.
you just don't.
Yeah.
There's the cheerleading squad, which is from an all girls school,
Right.
and all the football players go out with.
Of course. Of course.
Yep. I went to the movies with this young lady, and I remember the movie,
What was it?
The Trial of Billy Jack.
Oh, great movie to go to.
Isn't that a great first date movie?
Yeah. Well, at least you can remember what it was. I can't for the life of me remember on that date. I do remember some other movies that I went on like back in the day. Like Carrie.
Oh, I love Carrie. That's a
Yeah.
great movie.
Yep.
Perfect time. Oh, I might
And
watch Carrie.
Star Wars. I think that was a first date movie.
Okay.
Yeah. This was like when I was in high school.
It would have. I was 17 when Star Wars came out. So you were
Younger.
15.
Yeah, probably.
Hmm.
Yeah, I went with Mitch Robbins.
Hey, Mitch, if you're listening, Mitch, reach out
Wonder
and leave a
where
comment
Mitch
on
is
Spotify
today.
for us.
Yeah. And he actually lived in my neighborhood too.
Oh.
So that was the other thing. It's like when you think about how you met back in the day, you know, it was people that were in your community, right? It was like maybe that people in the neighborhood, at school, if you were at churchgoer or whatever. It was like within your community.
Mhm.
That's completely changed now with online.
I
Like
think it
your
has.
pool has increased so much. Like it's global now if you really want
It
to
could be.
reach
It
that
could
far.
be. It could be.
So I guess that's one good thing, maybe.
So I was reading up a little bit about dating and how it's changed, how technology has changed it. And one of the things that I think it came from a TED Talk was cell phones. Cell phones were like a sea change in dating
Right.
because there was like immediate, you didn't call and get no answer or someone's machine. Remember people had machines? You had like
Well, and that was the thing. Like that's what you did, right?
had
You
to be
got the
home to get the
person's
call.
number,
Mhm.
right? And you had to call,
Mm-hmm.
not text. You actually had to have a voice call.
Mm-hmm.
And they would generally answer, or
Maybe.
you would leave a voice message.
Or you got to some restaurant because they gave you a fake number.
Oh, has that happened to you?
It hasn't happened to me. It's happened to friends of mine.
Oh, really? Why didn't the person just say, sorry, I don't give out
Because
my number?
it's easier to reject someone like when you're not around them.
Huh?
So if you say no, I don't give out my number, right? That's kind of hard. That's kind of hard to do to somebody. But if you give them a fake number, you don't have to be there when they call and find out that you got the mortuary.
I don't know. Because you have your hopes up, right? Like if the person
thinking
gives
of-
you a number
Right?
and you're like, oh, I got a number. And you're all excited and you're like, oh, I'm going to call. And then you're like, oh, they gave me a fake number. Rather than somebody being open and honest and just saying, I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is better.
Oh, I agree. It's better.
It's just better to be straightforward and honest at all
I
times.
100% agree. But this is why
Like now you have ghosting, right?
I was going to talk about ghosting. But
Okay.
the
Sorry, I interrupted.
you did. The
That's,
thing.
okay. That's why it's a podcast, Joe. It's called a conversation. This isn't, 60 plus with Joe.
Hardly ever.
I'm just kidding.
One of the last things you said to me before we started
I'm just
recording
kidding.
was, "You're going to have to do most of the talking, Joe, and I'll just respond."
Well, I didn't say how lengthy my responses would be.
When I was a kid, when I was in high school living at my parents' house,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to an all-male high school and didn't know many girls,
Mm-hmm.
I had a cousin that lived about 45 minutes away from me,
Mm-hmm.
and I hung out with him a lot because he knew a lot of girls.
Ah,
Mm.
see?
Well, I like my cousin too, but
Yeah.
the girls
You met
part was a
girls.
big draw.
So you met girls through family member.
I did,
Right. Which was way up there. It's a second bar in the 1970s.
but she lived in another state. And
Oh.
my parents were nuts about long distance phone bills. They like
Oh.
I would write letters to her.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yep.
So that was the relationship, letter writing back and forth.
Once in a while, I would call and then like say, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission when the phone bill came in. What are these numbers
And
in
then
New
did you
Hampshire?
ever see her again?
Oh yeah. No, I would. I got my driver's license the day I was eligible to get my driver's license.
Okay.
So I would frequently, I would go and stay at my
You
cousin's
had
house.
motivation.
I did. He knew girls. So, but that, according to this TED discussion, mobile phones, huge. And
Still
that
changed.
led to the ability to have online dating,
Mm-hmm.
swiping left and swiping right.
Yeah, and it's crazy how that leaps up. It like is on the scene in the first comes on this bar chart in the 1990s, and then it shoots up to the top in no time flat.
Well, it's kind of like anything with respect to the web, right? It accelerates so much.
Mm-hmm. And
Some of it's good.
I actually saw today I saw a bar chart that goes up to like, the most recent year that it's tracking this data. Something like 60% of all new relationships are from online sources.
So that's
That
interesting.
seems really high.
Really? Do you think so?
I wonder how that changes for our age group.
I didn't look into that.
Right. But of course.
But I did look into divorce rates. So long-term relationships that result in marriage, divorce rates are way down. And I wonder if it's because the pool of people that you're able to date has expanded, so you find a better,
match.
more compatible person.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I know this is supposed to be a nostalgia episode, but one of the things that I was listening to the other day was this. I just happened to catch this dialogue about online dating. And they were saying that a lot of things have changed for sure, but some things have remained the same. And you can kind of look at it as if you were in a room, like say you went to a party, right? Back in the day, you'd go to a party and you'd be talking to your friends and you might see somebody across the room and somehow you start talking, whatever. You met that way, right? Parties, bars, whatever. And if you look at this sort of virtual room as all those people are in a room.
You're swiping left and right.
And and you're possibly, it's like you're walking across a room to a certain number of people in that big pool of.
Sure.
So if it's like 100 people in a room, you're not going to talk to 99 of them. You're going to talk to, one or maybe two. So there's still sort of this process of trying to understand who might you be attracted to.
Well,
but unless you meet, and I think that's the missing factor there, right? Until you get to a meeting, there's really a complete mystery. So you lose that. And I think back in the day, that was the great part of
I agree.
Dating and meeting people. It's like you knew immediately whether there was some kind of attraction, and you might have a conversation and it lasted a couple of minutes, or it led to meeting again.
Sure. Unlike online dating where you look at someone's picture, you might just dismiss that person just from their picture.
Right. And if you had met them in person,
well, but it
might have been a different story.
In the room with 100 people and 98 of them you don't talk to, you're just going by their looks at that point. You're not necessarily interacting with them.
Right.
So with online dating, you see a picture, maybe several pictures, and then you read a profile, see if they're witty or interesting or just AI has written their profile for them. There's an analogy there to be drawn. I do agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, I don't know. Nostalgic. I guess maybe I am nostalgic. I do like the idea of going back to those days of meeting somebody out in my natural habitat.
Okay. I mean, on a macro level, it's not going to happen. It's not going to go back.
Well, not completely.
But individually, it could happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, the pendulum may swing back, but it's certainly a screening out process if you think about
Always has been.
Yeah.
It always has been. And I think the bigger the pool of people that you can draw from, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you live in a town with 30 people
Right.
in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and you
end up dating your cousin.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to eliminate the people you're related to. So now half of them are the right gender, and then you eliminate the people you're related to. You might have two people.
Yeah, sure. There you go. There's your screening out process right there.
So any funny stories about first dates or anything like that?
From me?
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. I can't think of any right now, but if you go first.
I have one.
You go first and then I'll think.
It was someone I met at a party,
Mm-hmm.
and I got her number
Mm-hmm.
and called and set up a time, a date to go on. And I got to her house, and this was a time when people lived with roommates,
Right.
right? So it was a house, she had several roommates, and I was on the front porch and I'm ringing the bell. And it's a long time coming. Like, no one's answering. I'm like, did the bell ring? I'm knocking on the door, and I ring the bell. Now, no cell phones, so I can't call and say, hey, I'm on the front porch. I was just about to leave. She comes to the door, and she says, have you been waiting long? And I said, well, it was kind of took you a long time to answer the door. She said, I heard the bell, but I thought it was the phone, and I kept picking up the phone.
Okay.
And there was no one there.
And did you kind of say, yikes?
I did say yikes. I think we went on one date. I don't remember how that date was. We went on one other date, and I was just like, yeah, no, man, it ain't going to work. Not going to work. But I met her in person. And,
there you go. There's something to be said for that.
And it gave me a story for my podcast.
There you go.
50 years later. No, less than 50 years, but.
Well, I just remember like all the excitement. These not funny stories, but waiting for that phone call, right? Because you give your number out, and of course, back in the day, who knew who was going to answer the phone?
What if the dad answered?
Yeah,
the
the
phone?
dad or the mom, even the mom, right? Because my parents would be like, "Who's calling?" Like, can I speak to Janet? Whatever. Who's calling, please? Like they'd make them go through the whole polite conversation. And you had to be socially adept, right?
Sure. Yes.
So I think that's kind of gone out the window a little bit with these personal cell phones. There's no screening from the parents,
No, but you have caller ID and you know who's calling. So you don't have to pick up if you don't want to.
Yeah, but then they can text you.
You don't have to respond.
I know.
We were
you
talking
can
about
block
ghosting. We were
them.
talking about ghosting.
Yeah.
I remember.
I mean, what was ghosting like back in the day versus how you take a different hallway? It's like, not going to church anymore.
It's tough if you live in that town with 30 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Ghosting is difficult when it's, in person.
And when you're younger, right, you're always I would go to the girl's house and her parents would be there.
Yeah. You had to be braver.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You had to be braver.
You know what I found more difficult than actually going to pick up the girl for the date?
Mm-hmm.
Was calling.
Yeah.
It was because, first of all, I'm calling from my house and everyone can hear me talking on the phone because the phone's in the hallway.
Right.
And
mine was in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
If it was a really special call, I'd be like, can I take it in the bedroom? Like there was another phone in my parents' bedroom.
Was it a princess phone?
No, it was in my parents' bedroom. I'd have to sit on the floor underneath the little night table, and at least I had some privacy. I could close the door or whatever.
Okay.
But otherwise, you were standing in the kitchen.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter how long that phone cord was.
No, it doesn't.
You'd go in the pantry closet.
Yep. And my sister would be like, who are you talking to? I remember I was in high school, and it was a young lady that I met through my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd go on probably a few dates, and they invite me to dinner at their house with the family.
Wow. That got serious real fast.
Well, her father grilled.
Oh, he grilled you?
He grilled steaks.
Okay. Was that a foreshadowing of what he was going to do with
He
you?
gave me a butter knife. for the steak. Everyone had steak knives, and I had a butter knife.
Oh, was that a
I
test?
think so. I th-
Or was he afraid you were going to
no,
stab
no, I
somebody?
don't think no. Um, I think it was a test, and they had a glass top table in the kitchen with
Mhm,
fabric placemats.
mhm.
Try and cut a steak on a fabric placemat on a glass top table. The whole plate is like sliding back and forth.
You should have just picked it up with your hands.
Put my face in the plate and
Yeah.
start gnawing on it. I think it was a test. I do.
Maybe it worked. Did you get to see her
Yeah,
again?
no, we went on.
So you handled
I
it well.
think so. I mean, they probably laughed hysterically when I left.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah, for
and
sure.
when you're like 17 years old,
That's
you don't-
cruel.
well, you know it's appropriate.
It's kind of funny.
It
too.
was. I look back at it and think it's funny. When you're 17 years old, you know you're supposed to bring something. I don't remember
Right.
what I brought, but I can't bring wine.
Flowers. Flowers
Yeah,
are always good.
yeah. I was never good with flowers. I've only gotten good with flowers in recent years, actually.
Mm-hmm. Flowers are always, I think,
When I
welcome.
graduated from
Well, for me anyway.
when I
love
graduated
flowers.
from college, I was working, and there was a commencement ball, the big
Mhm.
event of the end of senior year, and I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I asked a friend if he knew someone, still doing that at 22 years old, and they said, "Oh, Joe, you got to get flowers." So I was working during the day, and I was working near home, and I called my mom, and I said, "Mom, I need flowers for the commencement ball tonight or tomorrow night, whatever it was." So she ordered the flowers. I knew nothing about flowers. Apparently, my mother knew nothing about flowers either, because someday I'll show you the picture. I understand there's a flower arrangement called a presentation, which is kind of a few stems, very kind of elegant. And no,
Mhm.
no, this was like a big pom thing of flowers. It was like 1.5 feet across.
Aren't you supposed to get her a wrist?
No, they didn't want wrist corsages. They didn't.
Oh,
No,
okay.
all the other girls had presentations. My date had this giant lollipop pom thing of flowers, and man, if you could see
Maybe-
the picture.
Did you get to see
No.
her again? It's like,
Nope.
you bought the wrong flowers.
Oh,
Forget
no.
about
She
it.
would-
That's like answering the phone,
It's
thinking
the doorbell. Yeah.
yeah.
I was on the wrong end of that one.
Way back
Way
when
back when dating was different. It was
dating was different, and so the phone call, and you make an arrangement where they come pick you
Mhm.
up, and I can just like remember, that feeling of being picked up, and you're all excited, and off you go. And one of my best first dates was I met this person actually on the beach.
Hmm.
Yeah, there you go. So out in my natural habitat. And they picked me up and we went to Asbury Park,
okay.
the Stone Pony,
Oh wow,
to see the Stray Cats.
sounds like a great date.
It was a great day, and it got even better because there I am at the stage watching the Stray Cats. And this was when they first came out. It's a Stone Pony, small venue. And up walks this guy. I'm like, that looks like Bruce Springsteen. And it was. And he starts singing with the Stray Cats, and I could have reached out and touched him.
Well,
And
that's not a nice thing to do when you're on a date.
I didn't.
You weren't.
But I'm
He
saying
wasn't your
that's how
date.
close he was.
He wasn't your date, was he?
He was that close.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, this is a really good first date.
You have no idea who it was with. You just
No,
remember.
I don't remember. I can't remember his name.
You reminded me, talking about it on the beach. A friend of mine were on the beach. We were in high school. He still had braces. And there were these two girls sitting not far from us. And we probably spent about a half an hour like strategizing how we were going to go over and start talking to these girls.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that I was going to do the talking because my friend had braces.
That's good. That's good thinking.
So we walked over and said, "Hi, we were thinking of going up to the snack bar and getting something to drink. Would you like to come with us?" And one of the girls, like, her eyes lit up, like, because we'd been looking back and forth at each other,
Mm-hmm.
and her eyes lit up, and she turns to her friend, and her friend, with this very sour look on her face, goes, "We're reading."
Oh Oh, wow.
And we're like,
Shut down.
okay. And we just kind of like
Ran away.
skulked away. Oh, it was awful. It was awful.
Rejection is not fun, no matter when,
Very true.
where, or how.
So on that high note, I think
Yeah.
I think that brings the end of this nostalgia episode about dating to a
Yes.
close. That's it for this week's episode of the 60 Plus podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm Janet. Bye.